Hi, everybody. I don't have time to do the kind of extensive and detailed rebuttal video that I want to do right now regarding Evan Rachel Wood's recent documentary, Phoenix Rising, that just premiered at Sundance. I did watch it. I watched this. I bought a ticket to the second screening, and I watched the entire documentary. And so I want to give you just some of my basic reactions right now because I wanted to get something out there as a kind of rebuttal to this. And I know that I did a video the other day with Greta Aurora that was also good, but I wanted to put my own out there and just give you a number of my impressions. And hopefully this video will be prominent in any YouTube searches of Evan Rachel Wood's documentary. So anyway. My overall impression is that I was just amazed. I was just aghast, as they say, at the level of brazenness to put things in her documentary, to assert, to make claims and assertions that are like Marilyn Manson's attorney said, that are just demonstrably false, that are easy, as he said, easy to disprove. I think the impression that I got watching that documentary is that, first of all, and I guess this is no surprise, but it seems like the documentary makers and Amy Berg had no interest in investigating anything outside of Evan Rachel Wood's claims. And so this really was, as one of my friends said, this really was them just giving us Evan Rachel Wood's story. And, it's a free country, and I believe in the freedom of artists, and I'm not saying that she shouldn't be allowed to make a documentary like this, and I'm not saying that it's wrong to make a documentary from one person's perspective. But when you are accusing someone of sexual assault, rape and physical abuse and harassment and torture and all of these different things that these women collectively are accusing Marilyn Manson of, and when you've said the things about Marilyn Manson that Evan Rachel Wood is saying in this documentary, I mean, to me, it is slander and it is defamatory. And your freedom to say what you want ends when you are propagating things that are demonstrably lies. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I just know that it was deeply offensive. It was a deeply offensive documentary. And I hope that, if this video comes up in searches, okay, so my last video, the one that got taken down, and it got taken down because at the beginning of my video, I used a really brief, it was like a 30-second clip from Phoenix Rising that had been taken on the iPhone, okay, from the screening. And, I thought 30 seconds would be okay, considering the rest of my video was like 30 minutes, but no, it got yanked. And so, but my point is that before it got yanked, it was up there for several days, that video, and it was a rebuttal. It was a kind of a casual rebuttal to Evan Rachel Wood's, to what I had seen at that point of Evan Rachel Wood's documentary of Phoenix Rising. And then I ended up seeing the whole thing afterward and haven't been able to respond to it till now. But my point is that video that I did before it got taken down, it was coming up there. It was right up there in searches that people were doing online of Evan Rachel Wood's documentary for Phoenix Rising, and it got 60,000 before it got taken down. That video got 60,000. Came up in 60,000 search results, which is a lot, and it got 13,000 views in just a couple of days. And so my point is that, these videos that I put out, they may not, a lot of them may not reach a wide audience, but they come up there in searches. People see, when they search for Marilyn Manson allegations, or when they search for Marilyn Manson, Evan Rachel Wood, or whatever, like in YouTube searches, like my stuff and some of the stuff that other people have done, like Celtic Iron and Karis and Greta Aurora, it comes up. So, I think that it's, like I said, it's like we're trying to metaphorically take down a tree, metaphorically, all right? And it takes a long sustained effort and over time. So any little thing that we can do, and I think these YouTube videos are making a difference. So that's why I wanted to put something out here. I am preparing right now an extensive professional rebuttal to the claims that Evan Rachel Wood has made. There are other people out there who have done this too. Marilyn Manson Uncanceled, a website, and also on Instagram, has gone through and methodically rebuked a number of her claims. But anyway, I just want to give you my thoughts on this at the outset. First of all, I thought it was really interesting how so much of the documentary, so much of it was devoted at the beginning, and well, for the first half of it was devoted to demonstrating, I'm sorry, but how crazy Evan Rachel Wood is. And and what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, there were all these stories that she was telling about herself, about how she grew up in this really, troubled home, with a family that so valued like theater and theatrics that it was kind of hard to sometimes tell fantasy from reality. I think her brother was even on camera saying that she had been in the theater and so much, she had been an actress for so long. I'm paraphrasing, but that it was basically like she couldn't really turn it off, almost kind of painting her inadvertently as a fantasist. And when you see this, right, like, and I know a number of you haven't seen this, when you see it, it's going to premiere, this documentary is going to premiere in March, unfortunately. So we've got basically a month and a half before it's going to be widespread defamation of Marilyn Manson's character. And, some of you might be laughing. Some of you who may not be familiar with this situation or this controversy, you might be laughing. You might be saying Marilyn Manson's character, what character? He painted himself as the devil. Well, yeah, and we could have a philosophical discussion about what degree of culpability, or it's just kind of the basic law of karma is going on where, when you present yourself as something for decades or pretend to be something, even theatrically, that there's cause and effect and people will take that seriously and whatever. We could have that discussion, but the discussion that I'm interested in having is whether Evan Rachel Wood is telling the truth or not. And whether Marilyn Manson has committed these crimes that he's accused of. And my opinion, I've talked about on my channel, is that he hasn't. But anyway, it's interesting to me how in this documentary, like they say all these things about her and how troubled her upbringing was. And then there's things that she even says, like she talks about how when up until the age of like 12, she thought that her genitalia were deformed. She talks about this in the documentary, that she thought she had deformed genitalia. And by the way, as some of you have noted, the animation in the documentary is so bizarre. And I'll give you a case in point. I wish I could show it to you, but I can't because the filmmakers of Phoenix Rising went after my YouTube channel and also Celtic Iron's YouTube channel. And we had made videos, like I said, we had made videos attacking and rebutting and arguing with this documentary that Evan Rachel Wood has made. And so we showed short clips. I just showed one short clip at the beginning of mine. He just showed a few short clips throughout. It was like 95% us talking, right? And so again, and so the message that we got from YouTube the other night is that it was a manual takedown, which means it wasn't an algorithm or whatever that caught it, right? Like and that they were contacted, by the owners, legally instructed to take it down. So anyway, to me, it sounds like it's coming directly from the filmmakers and they're targeting various people. I think Greta Aurora might have had the same thing happen to her with a post. Anyway, I'm not whining or whatever. It's totally expected. I'm just saying, though, that I did have a video up that addressed this, but I had to take it down. But anyway, the point is, they have this really bizarre animation. And when Evan Rachel Wood is talking about how she found her genitalia disturbing and she didn't realize that her genitalia were normal until she was the age of 12 and it really bothered her. They have this animation of a little girl and Alice, like from Alice in Wonderland, with a dress on. And then she's got these like tentacle things coming out from under her dress. It's really bizarre. If any of you end up seeing it, you'll see what I mean. It's very bizarre. All right. So I guess the point that I'm making, though, is that I know what they were trying by getting into Evan Rachel Wood's psychological problems and her problems growing up and her emotional issues and so forth. I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to demonstrate, the filmmakers were trying to demonstrate how that made her then vulnerable to Marilyn Manson's abuse and manipulation. And they even say that at one point in the documentary. But I'm sorry. The impression, that much stronger impression that I was left with watching that, and I think a lot of people will be left with watching that, is that this is a really messed up woman. I'm sorry, but they spend the first like 30, 45 minutes from what I remember just cataloging the different ways in which she's messed up in the head. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to people with mental illness, okay? I've talked about my chronic clinical depression on here, and I've got other issues, believe me, okay? I'm just saying, though, that this case, this Marilyn Manson, this situation and Marilyn Manson's guilt, it rests on whether these women are telling the truth and whether some of them are psychologically healthy. And Evan Rachel Wood, she is the primary accuser. She's the one who got this ball rolling. She and her girlfriend, who's depicted in the film, Ilma Gore, a hardcore activist, they emailed these people. They emailed women that Marilyn Manson had been with and tried to recruit them. And Marilyn Manson's got a lot of, even by his own account, he said he's got a lot of messed up women in his background. Anyway, so I thought that was weird and strangely, and that painting Evan Rachel Wood as being a deeply troubled person, to me, that was ineffective for what they were trying to achieve in this documentary. Also, I thought it was very interesting how the documentary did not contain any footage, any interview footage, present day interview footage of Evan Rachel Wood discussing sexual or physical abuse at the hands of Marilyn Manson. Now, they do include a couple of clips from her testimony before the California Assembly and her testimony before the U.S. House of Representatives, in which she's detailing all of these different specific, horrific sexual and physical abuses that she suffered by a former boyfriend. She doesn't say who it is. She doesn't name him at that point because that was prior to her naming him. And I just think it's interesting how all of none of these really graphic, disturbing episodes that she describes in her prior testimony when she's not naming him, none of that was repeated or made it into this documentary in the form of the interviews that were done. In fact, all that Evan Rachel Wood talks about in the interviews that were done for this documentary, she goes into great detail about all of the psychological coercion and manipulation that Marilyn Manson used to get her as an impressionable young child. She wasn't a child, she was of age, okay? 18 when they met, and 19, when that video was shot, and dated him throughout, for several years, well into her 20s. Anyway, my point is, though, they're talking about most of what she says negative about Marilyn Manson is that he coerced her, this innocent, naive young child. He psychologically coerced her into becoming his girlfriend. As my friend Celtic Iron was saying, that's called courtship, sweetheart. And so what she even describes it in the video. She says, he was really nice to me. He was really interested in my career. I felt like I could talk to him about all these things that I couldn't talk to other people about. And she depicts that as somehow being coercion and manipulation. And that's just what happens when you're like dating. What you're saying is that you got to know him and you got to like him, and maybe you were also impressed with his status as a rock star. Now, she says in the documentary she didn't find him attractive. So we're supposed to understand that she just, this is what they say over and over in the documentary, that she just wanted a friend relationship, and he psychologically forced it. That's her main complaint in there. And I just find it interesting that the really terrible stuff in terms of like sexual abuse and physical abuse and stuff, it doesn't actually make it into the documentary. She doesn't actually talk about it. It's just those two little clips from her congressional testimony back before she had named him, very conveniently, right? Anyway, so, and then so much time is spent on this music video. And what I said in my last video that I did on this, the one that got pulled down, that they don't have, that Evan Rachel Wood and her side, that they don't have real evidence when they're having to spend so much time using a music video, a fake work of art, and some gossip that surrounded that as their primary ammunition in this documentary. Her claim, Evan Rachel Wood's, her claim is that she was forced to actually have real intercourse when they were supposed to be faking it, she and Marilyn Manson, in this music video, Heart-Shaped Glasses. And there had always been like some gossip and stuff, sort of, flamed by Manson himself, about whether or not this was real, but the consensus was that it's not. and and so she's claiming that she was, when they were making this, that she didn't know, I guess, that he was going to slip it in her, to be crass, but that's what she's saying. She didn't know, and then he did it, and that was assault. Well, several things. First of all, I understand that it is possible to be in a relationship with someone, a sexual relationship, and that they can still, that rape still can occur within those confines. I know it's possible for husbands to rape their wives and so forth, and I don't think that being in a relationship with someone gives them consent to have sex with you whenever they want, if you don't want it. But at the same time, it's going a bit far to say that this was, that let's just assume that they had real sex, and I don't actually believe that, because a lot of people, credible people, have said that they didn't. But anyway, let's just assume that there was a bit of real sex in there during that music video. What's missing from Evan Rachel Wood's account is her saying no, or her pushing him away, or her in any way showing any kind of displeasure with this. And so, as far as consent goes, and we can get into this, you can look at my other videos, I'm not one of these who I believe that there are murky situations in sexuality, and that you don't actually have to have an affirmative yes in situations. In all situations. And to me, two people who've been in a hyper-sexualized relationship and dating, and they're on this film set, and they're getting all carried away in it, and then he starts having sex with her. To me, that seems like a very sort of subjective situation, and a situation where, in that case, if that's not what she wanted, then she should have said no. Now, it's all kind of beside the point, because I don't believe that actual sex really occurred. And I'm going to get into that in more detail, the reasons why I don't believe that in my next video. But anyway, I think though that the fact, whatever you may think of this, I think the fact that this was like the main pillar of this video, focusing on this, I think, again, it just shows kind of the weakness of this, and also of their case, and also the documentary makers' desire to, as much as possible. I tell you, Amy Berg never missed an opportunity to confuse Marilyn Manson's art with reality. And there's an entire section. This is another problem that I have with this documentary. There's an entire section where they're just reading, they're just a voiceover that's just reading from Marilyn Manson's autobiography, and that autobiography, it's already been debunked as truth, and I go into that in my other videos. But again, where is the evidence? There's one moment in the documentary where a picture of an M carving in the flesh, like someone had carved M in their flesh, is flashed up on screen, or someone's holding it. Again, with these pictures, they're never connected. It's like with Esme Bianco's back pictures of a back that she claims was slashed with whip marks, with a whip, and she has these scars on it that then disappeared later when she was, out in public in a backless dress. But anyway, these pictures, they don't ever have the head, to see who it's attached to, and as far as Evan Rachel Wood, and carving, we know that she herself has posted a picture on her Instagram of her carving herself, almost in a weird way, kind of bragging about it. So, I don't know. It's just there's so much craziness in all of this too. And that's what we have to really be honest about. Okay. Is that, I have no problem believing that Marilyn Manson is not, the most stable guy in the world. And I've talked about this before in my other videos. I'm not here to try to idealize Marilyn Manson. But I just think that there's a whole narrative that is just it's just the media is running away with this runaway narrative, and it's so easy because of how he looks and because of his persona that he cultivated, and that he did have a hand in cultivating, obviously. But it was his vision that's made him now vulnerable to some of this. But it's just, to me, people need to question this, and I've been talking about it in my videos before. I didn't like the way that I didn't like the way that Evan presented it, as if these women just naturally found her. Celtic's going to talk about that in the video he's putting out, I think tomorrow. They didn't just find you, you recruited them, okay? And and this effort, like I said, throughout the film to make Evan look like, even with the Alice in Wonderland graphics of a child, and a number of you talked about this on Instagram, to make Evan look like she's a child. And, her biggest beef with Marilyn Manson in this documentary seems to be that he got her to date him. It's like, I hate to say it, but it is really like, it seems like this is just someone going through a kind of like a phase of deep sort of regret for who she was at one particular period in her life, because it doesn't gel now. That sexy, seductive Lolita person that she was, or that character that she pretended to be during that period in her life, whatever, that's now not who she is as Miss, lesbian or bisexual, feminist, activist, Phoenix Act, getting domestic violence acts passed and things like that. It doesn't gel. And I think, looking back, what's going on here, she is a kind of projection of her own, of some kind of, her own guilt or disavowal of her prior self by just projecting it all onto Manson. He made me do these things. She talks about the Nazi stuff, that was Manson. He was obsessed with Nazi stuff. Well, why is it that you're the one that we have a picture of with the Hitler mustache that we know that you drew on? Because I've interviewed people that have said that you drew it on, and you're happily wearing the Nazi outfit, and and the drug thing. You make it sound in the documentary, and your mother, when she's talking, makes it sound like you were this innocent girl who was being fed these drugs by Marilyn Manson. But we know that you were enthusiastic about it. Okay, we know you were into it. You went through, Evan. You went through this wild phase, and you dated this rock star, and you weren't very attracted to him physically, but you were attracted to what he represented, and it didn't work out. And now, you need I guess your life, you're feeling so empty in life that you needed to create a kind of crusade for yourself. Because I have to say, that's another thing that I want to say, is that this documentary, Phoenix Rising, if you, like I and others do, believe that this is a hoax, and it takes the form of a kind of a look into a sort of bizarre obsession. You've got Evan. They actually, at one point, if I'm remembering it correctly, I only watched it once, but at one point they take their supposed evidence, which to me just looks like some whiteboards and some computers with some stuff on it, nothing conclusive. There's no like evidence in this thing either. There's like innuendo and hearsay and stuff from Marilyn Manson's book, and stuff that Evan Rachel Wood's mom is saying, and graphics from Alice in Wonderland, or whatever it's like. But anyway, at one point, they talk, with this sort of feigned nervousness about how they have to move their stash of evidence to a safe house because Brian has supposedly gotten wind of what they're doing, and he's such a crazy narcissist that he's gonna attack them. I guess he's gonna send people to their homes to get the evidence or whatever. And so they do this dramatic thing in the documentary of having to move their supposed evidence, their computers and their whiteboards to the safe house. This sort of bizarre obsessional theatrics going on in this. And I don't know. And again, there's a whole, for those of you who are not familiar with this, you just randomly stumbled upon this video and you don't know why I'm railing against a documentary that purports to expose an abusive man. It's because there's this whole other side to it, and I'm working on another video. I put out videos before summarizing my case, and since then there have been new developments, but go back and take a look at one of those, and I'm putting another one together that'll go out soon, and I appreciate everybody's encouragement and support. And other people have done it too. Stand By Your Manson on Instagram. A lot of great information there. Anyway, but it's very bizarre. And I felt like this was a kind of a glimpse into a crazy world, into the mind of someone whose mind is going through all of these different kinds of bizarre contortions to rewrite her history and to project everything negative about that particular time in her life onto one man who serves as a really convenient target because for decades he cultivated this image of himself as being, Satan incarnate and a monster and stuff. But that doesn't mean, just because he did that does not mean that it's the truth, or that He needs to have his life, career, reputation, whatever, defamed like this. Also, Evan Rachel Wood, you were not isolated, okay? You did 10 movies. You know, she said that Brian Warner, Marilyn Manson, isolated her from her family. You did 10 movies. I'm going to go into this more in my documentary that I'm making, or my rebuttal to this. You did 10 movies. You look on IMDb. You did 10 movies. You did Mildred Pierce during this time. Okay, that's isolation. How could Marilyn Manson not being with you for all those things like isolate you? Okay, visit you occasionally, but that's about all, right? You know, you said he isolated you from your family, but he took you all to Disney World. There's pictures showing it. I've talked to Zach Schiffer, who said that they were there twice at that particular at the tour that he was on. They went to like 2 of the shows and got VIP backstage passes. And why is it too, while we're on the subject of your parents, Evan, you know, who by the way only had positive things to say, you know, years ago about Manson. And you would even talk about how he and your dad got along so well, but you know, the dad that you supposedly isolated you from. But anyway, why is it that your mom, when, you know, she has absolutely not one story of actual abuse by Manson that she can point to, or negative behavior or anything? You know, your mom used to love Manson. And it's just very strange to me, you know. It seems like, because you said that your parents, you've said before, you know, recently you said that your family couldn't get you away from him. Well, that implies that they tried to get you away, and that implies then that they were privy to knowledge of abuse that was going on at the time. But I noticed that your mom, in the documentary, she does not provide any specific examples of that. It's all of this sort of hindsight bullshit of like, well, in hindsight, you know, or a problem that she had with, you know, with the age, or that she says she had. There's so much rewriting of history here, but I just think it's interesting. If this horrible abuse was going on, and your mom's going to sit down and do an interview with you trying to prove it, and then she can't point to any specific instances or anything, because there weren't any. And your parents loved him at the time, and they got along well, and you hung out a lot, and he didn't isolate you, and there's lots of proof of that floating around. Anyway, I guess that's about it for now. I've got a whole lot more to say about this. And like I said, I'm working on a comprehensive video. Definitely going to get it out by March, if not sooner. I appreciate all of your support. You know, it's as this thing is heating up, and it's going to go, and the documentary is going to go to HBO soon. And then I imagine things will heat up with some of the civil litigation. We'll see what gets thrown out, but anyway, it's just going to get more and more intense, and I plan to continue doing this. But I appreciate your support. You know, just like I had, you know, a video, and Celtic had a video get taken down, and stuff like. You know, sometimes it's a little anxiety producing what we're doing here. So anyway, I put a lot of work and my heart and soul into it. So I appreciate your donations, PayPal, Patreon links below, and as usual, even a little tip helpful. All right. Thank y'all so much, and more to come. Have a good day. Bye.